Good morning. This is VirtualPBX admin training. This training lasts about an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 45 if load times are slow. We do record these trainings, so if you can't stay for the whole time, that is perfectly fine. You can then come back to this link or even send it to other staff members who need to be system admins. In the show notes, you'll see some links. Some of them are to other videos about specific topics. A couple are to our support pages, and in one case, a specific article on the support pages that come up basically during the training. Feel free to make use of the chat feature in YouTube to ask about a question or ask a question about a feature as I go over it, and I'll try to address the question as soon as I see it. And with that, it's 10 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started. On your screen here, you see our dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. To get logged in, we need 3 pieces of information. The first is your email address, which should be all in lowercase letters. Then we need your password, which should have been emailed to you, and that is case sensitive. And then lastly, we need the account name, your organization name. It could be your own name. That is not case sensitive. Now, if for some reason that doesn't work, then down here, just above the sign-in bar, there's a forgot your info link. When you click on that, it flips the box around. And we still need your email address, right? That's that first piece of information. That's your unique identifier. Then down here, we need one of these 2 pieces of information. Typically, the account name is the easiest, as most people know what their account name is. The second option is a phone number on the account, and that's one of your customer-facing phone numbers. Right, so not someone's cell phone number that you added as a device, but a phone number your customers call into. Then you click on the Reset Password button here. When you do that, that's going to send you an email to that email address for your user. In the body of the email, there's a link there. You click on that. That temporarily logs you in so you can change your password. If you try to do anything else, the system logs you out. Once you change your password, the system logs you back out, takes you back to the login page, and you come in here, enter in your password. You do have the option to click on Remember Me, and then click on Sign In. Now, I'm using a test account that I log into on a regular basis. So when I log in, it's going to take me to my dashboard page, assuming it loads. There we go. Which gives me a quick snapshot of my account. If it's your first time logging in, it actually takes you to your user account page. I can always get there, or so can you, at any time from your account by clicking on your name. So look at the top of the page, just to the right of center, and you see your name there. You can click on that. It's going to open up a big old pop-up. That's your user account page. So that is where you would change your password, for instance, which for system admins, if you just signed up for us, I recommend doing this first, just because the password the system generates is complicated, and I don't think anyone really memorizes those. You can also change the date time format. You can also change your time zone and language so it's appropriate to where you are. As a system admin over here on the left, you can click on the account level settings. So you can change who the technical contact is. You can also change the time zone and language for the entire account. If you need to change the account name, you actually want to email our billing team, and that's billing@virtualpbx.com, because there's other things they need to get synced up properly. Over here on the left, add-ons. So any admin can activate add-ons to the account. So these are ways to increase functionality of your account without having to actually change your account or update your plan, i.e. you don't have to contact us to do it. As you can see, I have all of the available add-ons enabled. Now, if an add-on would increase your bill, you will get a pop-up notification letting you know this will increase your bill by this amount per month. You have to confirm that to continue, right? If you cancel it out, then you don't add on that feature, you don't incur that charge. So something to be aware of. Now, um, if you're interested in multiple of these add-ons, right, and they all have a charge, then you definitely want to call to our account services team and see if it makes more sense to just change your plan. Because some of these things would be included in higher levels of plan. And that's account services at virtualpbx.com, or you can simply call the toll-free number and hit option 4. Further on the left down here, we have the billing portal. And this link right here will take you to the billing portal. It asks you for your email address, and then we'll send you a PIN number if you're the designated billing contact that we have on the system. That once you logged in there, you can see things like your previous bills. You can update your credit card or your payment method, etc. And then lastly, any admin can come out here and click on cancel account and then go through the process to close out the account. Now, when you do this, right, once you click cancel account, the system will basically close it out at the end of the current billing cycle, right? This button then just changes to chat with us because you've already initiated the cancellation. When you're done here, click on the close button here towards the top right, and you're back here on our dashboard page. So again, click on your name at any time to get back to your user portal. To the right of your name, most of you will have a D&D toggle, which stands for Do Not Disturb. Mine is currently active, and that means I'm not accepting calls, right? So if I have a phone number directly on my user, someone dials that number, they're going straight to voicemail. Likewise, if a colleague is trying to transfer a call to me, they get a message saying that I'm not available, right? So then they'll have to transfer it directly to my voicemail box. If I click on this toggle, it will be mostly black, and that means now I'm accepting calls. Now, this may disappear from your user if you are assigned to the call center or the ACD queues, right? Because that feature and Do Not Disturb do not work well together. So once you are actually assigned to the queues, that toggle gets automatically removed. All right, next up, we have the little phone icon here. This opens up a new tab and takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. If you have a web phone device on your user, you can log into this web page, which uses your dash login information, and you can use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls, right? So it's a VoIP phone. Then we have this little chat bubble here. This opens up a new tab. It takes you to virtualtext.app. This has its own login information, and this is one of the ways you would make use of texting on your account if you have that feature enabled on your user. Little question mark icon here. This will open up a chat box at the bottom right of your browser so you can speak to one of our support team members. This 3 horizontal line icon here, that's the menu icon, sometimes referred to as the hamburger icon. This takes you to other dash features. Most of our training will be here in the dashboard, talking like 95% of it. We'll touch on these other subjects. Some of them I do have to refer you to the links in the show notes. And then the arrow to the right icon here, that is the logout button. I'm going to skip down here to total users. I have 3, right? So I have 3 users on my account. These are people who make and receive calls. Most of our plans are based on a per user basis. So the more users you add, the higher your bill is going to be. Then I have total devices. I have 12, and then just a general bucket list here of what I have. So first up, I have cell phones. So you can add a cell phone or a landline phone number as a device on your account, right? So we can send a call to your cell phone. Now, when you pick up the call on your cell phone, that's it, right? You can't transfer that call from your cell phone to another user, right? You basically have to handle the call or have, a colleague call them back, or they have to call back in. Next up, the web phone, right? That Chrome or Firefox web phone. Here is the soft phone. So this is a software application that uses your internet connection to make or receive calls. So it's a VoIP phone. This includes the VirtualPBX soft phone as well as any third-party soft phone apps you might be using. And then down here we have SIP phone. This is a VoIP phone. It's a hardware phone, right? So a piece of hardware sits on someone's desk, typically connects via Ethernet cable to get to your router, then out onto the internet. But beyond that, it acts like a phone. You pick it up, dial, you make a call out. Next down here, I have unregistered devices. I have one, and that means I've turned off one of my devices on my dashboard, which we'll get to when we get to the devices tab. Then I have total numbers, 14, right? So I have 14 phone numbers on this account. Your account includes at least one main number as part of your monthly plan price. Typically, there is another, some of them have an additional allocation, like one local number per user. I'm definitely paying an overage on a per number basis every month, right? So likely, right, I have like 4 numbers as part or included, and so I'm paying for 10 numbers per month extra. Down here, I have a breakdown, assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned number, right? It's a number in use. Someone can call those numbers and it's like to speak to someone or leave a voicemail, join a conference, or be sending a fax to it. Spare number, I'm not currently using it, but it does count towards my allotment. Right? Could be I just took a number out of service because a promotion just ended, or I'm getting a number ahead of time because I'm about to open a new storefront in a different city that has a different area code, and I just want to get all the marketing materials together ahead of time. Down here, I've got USDID and US toll free. US toll free is actually a US Canada toll free, right? 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833 currently. USDID just means a US local number. Right? So if you have a number, say in Los Angeles, California, USDID, just as if you had one, say in Chicago, Illinois, also USDID. You can have international phone numbers on your account if you'd like to get one. You want to email our porting team. That's porting at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. They'll let you know A, if that's possible, and then B, if there's any additional requirements. Right? Those requirements come from the country in question. Conference bridges, I have 2. That means 2 of my 3 users, I have enabled the conference feature on so they can host or moderate a conference. Over here towards the top right, I have my main number box where I have 4 main numbers. These numbers are all behaving the same way, right? So they're all going to the same part of my system. They're all going to have the same main greeting. Down below that, I have my conference room number. You can have multiple conference room numbers if you want. They're all going to the same set of conference rooms. This is the number everyone dials to join the conference. That includes your staff, right? And your vendors, your clients, etc. Then we have the fax box number. You can have one main fax box number, and this is your inbound fax number. And once you have it, you can also edit the associated fax box to allow for outbound faxing. You do not have to have a main fax number if you don't want to. But once you have one, then your system can accept faxes. Oops. Next up, we have company directory. We have 2 links here. One is CSV, the other is softphone. The CSV is just that. It's just a spreadsheet file, and it's going to have all your staff members' names, their email addresses, their extension numbers, and their devices. Right. So if you like to have that kind of file around, so you can, have a physical copy, you can do so. The softphone link, this is for use. Just leave it there. With the VirtualPBX desktop softphone application, right? So if you're using our softphone app on your Mac or Windows PC, you can download this file and then upload it to your softphone on your computer. It's going to show you in the softphone's contacts the other staff members who have VirtualPBX softphones. and you'll be able to see their status in relation to the soft phones only, right? So if my colleague Mike is on a call on his virtual PBX soft phone, I can see it. Right? He'll be red next to his name. So I'm like, oh, he's on a call, right? So I know not to call him at that time. I can circle back later. Now, if my colleague Mike also has a Yealink phone as well as a virtual PBX soft phone, I'm not going to be able to see if he's on a call on his Yealink phone. The virtual PBX store, this opens up a link that goes to store.virtualpbx.com. This is where you can order things like a VoIP phone that we pre-provision for your account. And then down here we have the account realm. Every account has its own account realm. It's used in a couple of things. The most common, or the two most common, the first is for use as a third-party soft phone. It's one of the three pieces of information you would need to program or provision that third-party soft phone. The other thing it's used for is for outbound faxing. I'll get into that a little bit later when we get into faxing, but basically you use that as part of the outbound email address that you're sending to. All right, we're going to skip back up here to the right of where it says VPBX New Hire Sandbox. I have caller ID. Right, when I click on this button, it opens up this box. Now, this pull down lets you select any of your main numbers that you have assigned or that you have chosen to make use of. That becomes your default outbound caller ID for any of your VoIP phones. All right, so you want to select one and then click on Save Changes. Then we have hold music. On Dash, you can upload your own hold music files. It will play back .wav and .mp3 files up to 1 megabyte in size. Typically, to have a longer duration file, we would recommend you record your file in mono, not in stereo. You can click Upload here, click on Browse to find the file on your device, click the up arrow icon so that it will upload, and then Save Changes, and that will become the default hold music for your entire staff. Now, hold music is after the call has come in and reached your staff members. Right? They've picked up the phone and answered the call initially, and then press hold on their VoIP phone. That's when this file will play. Now, ours is actually part of main number, but especially for new accounts, you don't want to get into main number, at least in my opinion, until you've set up all your users and devices and or groups. So we're going to go ahead and over here on the left, click on the users tab, which is the little person at the desk icon. It's about halfway down. So here you see my users. The to the users have a blue person in a suit icon. Those are my system admins, right? So they can make all the changes we're talking about. Dante here in the middle, he's got a little gray person icon. He's a standard user. He has very limited access. Right? He can check his voicemail. He can set up call forwarding for himself. That's pretty much it. So he can't even add devices to his own user or anything like that. Up here at the top, you would click on Add User. And you're filling out the form, right? So first name and last name, the system just wants some sort of text. I've literally seen people put like user one or just A in some cases. The email address used to log in, this needs to be unique for each user, right? So you're not reusing any email addresses. This is how the system communicates with your staff, right? That's where it sends the voicemail notifications. Also sends like password resets there. Password, right? Create a password for the user so they have something to use to log in with. Main extension number. Now the system starts you off with extension 1000, so it will suggest that the next extension you use is 1001, etc. You don't have to follow that. Right? You can simply delete that out and type in a different extension number, right? So like you have a new department and you want to start them off with extension starting with 8. Easy to do. In general, I usually just recommend people use 3 or 4 4-digit extensions. That gives them maximum growth and versatility. And this also because off of the main menu, you only have 0 through 9, uh, plus the star key and the default action. So that, you want to give people, most people want to use those for sending calls to groups or other options there. By default, this first option here is checked, which is creating a voicemail box for this user. That voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So for instance, if you create a user and you add a VoIP phone to them, that gets registered right away. From their VoIP phone, the user can pick it up, hits dial *98 and click call. That will log them in directly into their voicemail box that you created for their user. That first time they do that, the system will walk them through creating their voicemail box PIN number, as well as creating their voicemail box greeting. And if they click on the personal options, which I think is option 5, they'll even be given the option to record their name, which is what the system uses for the user directory. Speaking of, here's your option to include the user in the user directory. Just click on the box in front of it to activate. You can change this at any time. This option here is to send emails to an alternate address. So if you want those voicemail notifications and password resets to go to an email address other than the one that's used for login, you would click on the box here and then enter that different email address in the box provided. And this is something you can also change at a later date. And this one here is also important, at least as far as I'm concerned, which is send credentials to the user. Put a check mark here, and then click on create user if you only need to create one. Create user and add another if you're adding multiple people. Once you do that, the user gets an email, right? And in the body of the email, they're going to have their username and their password so they can log in. Right? They get the whole little welcome email. Now, once a user is created, you can always click on their name, right? So you can change their name if you need to, like if you made a typo, right? That happens. Here, you've got the option here to change their credentials. Right? So up here is where you would change their email address and then their password, which you have to confirm. You also have the option here to send them the password reset. Right? And then click on Save Changes. Here, you can change, or at least temporarily change their voicemail box PIN number. Just enter 4 digits and then Save Changes. Here's that option to send to an alternate address. And then here's the option to be in the user directory or not. Now this little person icon here, this pull down allows you to change an admin to a user or a user into an admin. If you're the only user on the account, please do not change yourself to just be a user. Little clock icon here, this allows you to change the time zone for the user, and that way their voicemail timestamps would be in the correct time for them. Little flag icon here, this allows you to change the display language of these web pages for that user. English, French, German, or Russian are your options. The ringing timeout by default is 20 seconds. That is plenty of time to send calls to a VoIP phone or to a landline. If you have a user who's only using a cell phone, you're probably going to want to kick this up to 30 seconds, maybe even as far as 45. Simply, it takes longer to route a call to a cell phone than it does to a landline. Right? Landline telecom knows exactly where their phones are, so they just pass the call straight through. Cell phone providers, they need to find the phone first, then they can send the call through. So that time to find you is why on a PBX system, you would need more time to send calls to a cell phone. Next up, we have the extension box. Right? You have the one extension you created when you created the user. You can always add additional extensions numbers for the user if you need to. Just enter the extension number and then save changes. There's a phone number box for users. So users you can assign to have their own phone numbers. Probably the most important thing to remember about doing so is that a phone number assigned to a user does not have hours of operation. So it's open 24/7. Right? So if someone has their personal cell phone and they have a phone number directly to their user, they can be getting calls from that number at any time of the day or night. You have two options: add from spare or by numbers. Right? By numbers is how you add new numbers to the account. Spare numbers is how do you make use of those numbers that you're not currently using. So like if I unassign this number and then click Save Changes, right, so now I have no numbers on this user. Go back to add from spare, and I can then add it back, or I can add any different number. I can add multiple numbers here as well and put it back. Now by numbers, you have local or toll free. Toll free, just choose the toll free prefix you want to work with, and the system will provide a list of available numbers. You can scroll down to keep looking for numbers you like. And you can add multiple numbers if you want, or click on the little icon to remove one. Or maybe not. Oh, there we go. All right. Once you've decided on the number or numbers that you want, click on By Numbers. This is where you're actually adding it to the account, right? Just putting it in your little cart, that doesn't reserve the number or anything of that nature. So now it's added to my account. Until I save changes, though, it's not actually added to my user, right? So if I click away from it, you see that I still don't have any numbers. So if I go back to spare, we'll add that for it way back here, and then I'll click Save Changes. Now, for local numbers, you need to know the area code that you want to add a number in. Same process, though, right? You have the same numbers, blah, 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 blah. Now, actually, let's go for any area code, and this includes the toll-free prefixes, you can get a message saying that there's none currently available, right? And that just means there's no readily available numbers in that area code. Exhausted is the telecom term. If that ever happens, what you want to do is do a search for that area code in your favorite search engine and use the word overlay, right? So if this gave me that message, I would go to area code, I would type in area code 310 overlay. That would tell me if there are any overlay area codes for that region. And if there is, then I can do a search for that area code. So for 310, that is area code 424, right? And that just means, multiple area codes covering the same geographic area, right? So your big metropolitan areas typically have multiple overlays, and especially if they're like this is Los Angeles area, right? There's also multiple area codes nearby that I could also look for. But beyond that, right, same process, right? Click add, click buy, and then here it is on my account. You see this, I'm sure you may have noticed this little gear icon when you click on it. First up is caller ID. Outbound caller ID name. You can type up to 15 characters in the box to the right. It does count spaces as part of the 15. That's unfortunately what the industry decided on way back when. We then associate whatever you type in that box to the right to your phone number for purpose of outbound caller ID name. Now, once you type something in here and click on Save Changes, right, we send that information to the other carriers who support this feature. It takes them up to 3 business days to update their servers. That's not something we can control. Some things you should know about the outbound CNAME, right? So when you make an outbound call, right, your call goes through several carriers before it reaches your destination. That's true for when you call from your cell phone, right? It goes through several carriers before it reaches its destination. Unless you happen to calling a call or calling someone else that's on the same network, then that might not be the case. Any carrier between us and destination that you call may not support CNAME, right? That's just a choice they've made, and we can't enforce that. But the main thing you need to know about the outbound CNAME is that receiving carrier has final say about what shows up on the phones on their network. This is particularly important for when you're calling cell phones. The cell phone carriers typically don't support CNAME. They'll pass the phone number through without a problem. It's the name information that doesn't get through. In fact, most carriers want to charge their subscribers an additional monthly fee, in order to have that information come through. Now, I haven't looked recently, but like my carrier, they wanted to charge me $10 a month, and I'm like, nah, I give you guys enough money, I'll be okay without it, right? Which is what I assume many people across the country have opted to do. Then down here, here's the option to turn on inbound CNAME. That means if CNAME information is presented to us, we pass it on to the devices of your users. Next up is E911. Each phone number you can assign an E911 address to. This then allows you to assign these phone numbers to specific devices just for the purposes of E911, right? So if your staff member Bob works from home, right, you don't want him to pick up his VoIP phone and dial 911 and have your company headquarters address transmitted to emergency services. That's not going to help Bob out. So what you can do is one of your other phone numbers, you can put Bob's home address if he works from home and then assign it to his VoIP phone for the purposes of 911 only, right? So then if he happens to have to call 911 from his VoIP phone, his address is transmitted to emergency services. And again, we'll get into that when we get to devices. And then prepend, this is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to add text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. So, for instance, I could type in the word direct. That word would show up on my VoIP phone when a call comes in on this phone number. All right, so let me just click Save Changes here. All right, so I have hard to see, it's yellow, but this little icon shows up next to the 408 number. So when someone dials the 408 number, reaches my VoIP phone, on my VoIP phone's display, I see the word direct and then their phone number, right? So I know, oh, they called my direct number versus the main number. Right, next up we have the device box where you can add spare devices or new devices. First up is SIP phone, right? This is that hardware device. You have these manufacturers to choose from. Some, like Yealink, have a bunch of models to work with. Others have like a dozen. Choose the make and model of the phone you want to work with. Then down here, you give it a name, right? Like Bob's phone or warehouse phone. Then the MAC address. This is unique to each device. Typically, it's a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, you want to try to get to its basic settings or status settings, and the MAC is normally displayed there. You would then type it in and then click on Create Device, and then Save Changes. Right. Then come back, and then this is a Yealink phone here. So if you click on it, once you've added the device here, you click on here, go to Advanced, and then select Miscellaneous. And down here where it says Allow Reprovision, click on Unlock. You should get a little green and white message. And then click Save Changes here and Save Changes here. So now you've told the system, hey, I'm going to provision this phone, i.e. I want to get it to work. As far as the dashboard is concerned, you're done. However, you need to log into that phone's web user interface. So in the show notes, you're going to want to look at the auto provisioning phones document. It's going to have screenshots for these various manufacturers of where you want to go. Typically, you're going to the auto provisioning page and you're entering a URL. The syntax varies slightly from each manufacturer, so that's why we had to do different screenshots for each one. And it's some of the manufacturers, there's other settings we have you check just to verify. But once you go through all that, you click confirm, click auto provision now in the phone. It's going to reboot a couple of times. And then once it's done doing that, it shows up as a green device here. So that means you can make and receive calls from it. Right, next up is cell phone, and this would apply also to landlines. So you need to give it a name. And then here in the number field, you would enter the number, but you need to start with +1, then the area code, followed by the number, right? You would then click on create device, and then you click on save changes to make sure you saved it here. And go. Right, so here we see what I just typed in. If we go to the advanced options, this is the default setup for a new cell phone or a landline. How this actually works, right? Call comes in, rings my cell phone, right? I pick up. The first thing I hear is, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When I press 1, I'm telling the system, yes, I'm here, and yes, I want to take the call. It then connects the caller to me, right? We begin speaking, everything's fine. Now, as I mentioned before, I can't transfer that inbound caller to, Dante on my system here, right? I have to handle it at this point. Now, there's one particular situation that has come up is that sometimes, or some of our customers have contracted out with another company to handle their after hours calls, right? So they go to an automated answering service. That answering service says, here's the phone number. Send calls to this number. We'll handle your after hours calls. So then they come to us. You would add that phone number as either a cell phone or a landline device. Now, what you want to do in the case of you're sending calls to an automated answering service is come to this advanced options here and says where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail or landline voicemail, put a check mark here and then click on save changes. So now when we send a call to this phone number, right, there's no message about this is a forwarded call, please press 1. Right? We hear that pickup tone, we connect the call. Now, if this is really someone's cell phone and you have this check marked, that's fine. That's personally up to you or up to the user. But what can happen is if their cell phone voicemail picks up, that's still a pickup tone. So the inbound call ends up on the personal cell phone voicemail box. Some people want that, some people don't. The other thing that can come up is this one here. Keep original caller ID. Right, customary calls in the system reaches my cell phone. On my cell phone's display, I see customer Mary's phone number. Some people don't answer calls if they don't recognize the number. In the US, we're heading into an election year, so many of us are probably starting to get hit with all sorts of, political calls, whether it's for, from candidates or from particular legislation that people are trying to get through. So what you might want to do is uncheck this and then click save changes here. So now when calls come in and reach my cell phone, instead of seeing instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number, I see this phone number I selected here. So hopefully I would recognize my main company number. So then to me that would say, hey, it's worthwhile to answer this call, right? Versus some random person calling my personal cell phone number, trying to, get me to vote for something or buy something. All right. Next up, we have soft phone. Now, whenever you add a soft phone or a web phone to the account, you get this warning message. It's about wireless VoIP technology and 911. Specifically, if you're on the move and you're using a VoIP phone, say on your cell phone, right? So you're using a soft phone app on your cell phone, you probably don't want to dial 911 from it because you might not be sending the correct location information to emergency services. Please make sure you read this at least once so you're aware. And hopefully you never have to dial 911. Once you close that box, this big box shows up here and it defaults you to using a third-party soft phone, right? Meaning you're using somebody else's soft phone app. That's fine if you want to do that. We're not going to judge you for it. You give it a name. Now, the SIP username, you're going to copy and paste that into the soft phone app that you're using. Then click on the zip password box and copy and paste that into the soft phone app you're using. Please do not change this or delete it because then you'll break the soft phone itself, or at least on our side. And then here is the account realm. Right? Those are the three pieces of information you would need to program or provision that third-party soft phone. Right? Then you would click on Save Changes and then Save Changes again, and then work on the soft phone app to get it working. Now, if you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone, that's fine. That's great. So down here, below it says where it says View Configuration Guide, you'll see a toggle. It's kind of grayed out, but it says Use Third-Party Application. You can click on that, and now it flips it, and much more easy to read. It says Use VirtualPBX Application. And once it updates, you still need to give it a name. Then you would click on Create Device. Then you click on Save Changes. Once you click on Save Changes, in this case, Dante gets an email saying his VirtualPBX soft phone is ready. In the body of the email, he's going to have his username and password to log into the VirtualPBX soft phone app. He's also going to have download links so he can use the app on his preferred device. Now, so for instance, like I use the soft phone app on my computer by default. If I need to use the soft phone on my cell phone, I need to make sure to log out of it on my computer first, and then I can log into it on my cell phone. I don't want to be logged into the app on two different devices at the same time, because that can cause problems for me in terms of actually accepting a call. Next up is a web phone. You still get this warning message. Web phone's easy though, because you just need to give it a name and then create device and save changes. You need to add it to a user because it uses a user's login information on that web page. Likewise, with the VirtualPBX soft phone, it has to be added here on the users directly. If you try to add it on the devices tab, you're not going to be able to have that toggle to click it, right? All right, let's go over to user features. So first up, caller ID number. This is for users that have their own phone number. This allows you to change what their outbound caller ID is, right? So by default, when I make an outbound call from my VoIP phone, I'm using the main number that I selected up on the dashboard page, that 775 number. But if I click this on, then I can select the user I assigned to myself and then save changes. So now when I make an outbound call, it's this 408 number instead. And I'll just turn that back off. All right, next up, we have voicemail box. This is enabled because I created the voicemail box with the user. This is the default settings for a voicemail box. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they're full and cannot hold any more. By default, there's three ways to listen to messages and only 2 ways to manage your voicemail box. So the first way to listen is because of this right here. Right? Attach messages to email. So voicemail gets left, I get an email notification. In the body of that email, the date, the time, the phone numbers involved, the voicemail box number, and then an MP3 attachment. Right? So I can click on it, listen to it, and then handle the call or call the person back. If I want to manage the voicemail, I either need to call into the system, right? So like from a VoIP phone, *98, use my PIN number, listen to it, and I'll have the option to delete. Up here, under my user portal, it defaults you to your voicemail tab. This little checkbox in front allows me to change the status up here. So I can mark it as ready, keep it as new, listened, or just mark it for deletion. Right, I can play it back here as well, right? One of the ways to listen to it. I can also download it. Now, if you have phone numbers that go to the main number, go to the virtual receptionist, then when the main greeting plays, you can hit *97 from any phone, cell phone, landline. The system will then switch to voicemail mode and ask you for the voicemail box number and PIN number so you can listen to your message over the phone that way as well. Follow me, this is for users with multiple devices. Now, I have 3 devices here, so by default, since I don't have follow me enabled, when calls come into me, all 3 of my devices ring. Right? Follow me allows you as an admin to change that behavior. Now, it defaults to everything, once you enable it, to everything is do not ring. You have to tell the system what phones to make use of. Right? So you would uncheck what you want to use, and then you have sliders. Right? Click and drag to the right, and that's how you're offering calls. Now, up here at the top, or towards the top, these are timestamps. This last one is you can edit. It defaults to 120 seconds. Right? I can change it down to 60. And I can also click this distribute button. Right? So now it's offering it to my soft phone first for 30 seconds, and then to my web phone. Now, if that's not working for the user, if they tell me, oh, I want my web phone first, then you can just click and drag and click distribute again. All right, now, if the user comes back and says, oh, yeah, I need to make use of my cell phone sometimes too, you can then add it, uncheck it, and then click distribute to add that third device. Or if they want them altering at the same time, just disable the feature, and that will happen. Now, oh, one thing I should point out, when you enable the feature, if this person is assigned to a group, calls from the group ignore the follow me settings for the user. Right? So it'll ring all their devices at once. Then, so that's one way for them to know, oh, it's a group call, where versus if someone dials my extension, it would only ring the call, the devices in order. All right. Users can have their own fax box if you want them to have one. You would click here to enable, and then you're given the option to do here to buy a new number, select a spare number, or assign a new extension. Now, I recommend making use of a phone number, as that gives the user maximum versatility. However, that can incur a cost. So if you use an extension, that's fine, but you have to be aware that that means this user can only ever receive a fax. They're never going to be able to send out a fax, because when they try to, the system will use that extension number as the outbound caller ID, and it's going to fail. The other concern about using an extension number is for inbound faxes, because some electronic fax services, in fact, at least the ones I've looked at, they don't have a provision to add an extension number, right? They just say, hey, send it to a phone number. That's it. Even for people who use, an actual fax machine, they have to know how to add an extension number. Like there's usually some keys like comma, comma, or pound, pound, and then extension number, or they're listening in at your main greeting and then entering the extension number and then start fax. Right? It's just extra levels of complication for people who are trying to send a fax. That's why I recommend a phone number. All right, conference bridge. Up here, you would click to enable so that they can moderate a conference. And then here is where you enter the PIN number for them. This is something they can change on their own under the user portal. The enable video conferencing would be only for your staff, right? Anyone on a VoIP phone who calls in could make use of that. Anyone who's calling in from, say, like a cell phone or a landline, or from outside your system in general, would not be able to make use of it. Call forwarding. You have off, on, or failover mode. Your staff members can turn call forwarding off or on their own, either directly on their VoIP phone or via the user portal. All right, failover mode is something you as an admin would have to set up for the staff member, and that's for anyone who's using a VoIP phone. Now, on my user here, right, I already have a cell phone added. I don't need to make use of call forwarding at all, since it's already part of my device mix, and I left the follow me settings off. So naturally, I'm already forwarding. All right. But for any other user, this may be useful. So failover mode, if I only had VoIP phones, then you would probably want to have failover mode enabled just in the phone number box here, +1 area code and number, right? No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. And then you click on Save Changes. There we go. Customize call recording. When you first enable it, it looks like this. Right? You have to tell the system what kind of calls you want to record. Right? Inbound internal. Right? Coworker called me. Right? So Dante calls me. Do I want to record it or do I not? Inbound external. Customer Mary called. Right? Outbound internal. I called coworker Dante. And then outbound external. I called customer Mary. So we often see this kind of setup, or we see all of them. Now, if you're recording every call and you have heavy call volume, you might want to look at AWS, Amazon Web Storage Services. You can link your Dash account to AWS services, and it ends up being more cost effective. It's also something we recommend for people in insurance because I believe there's a mandate to keep your call recordings for 10 years. Your account does include some amount of data storage as part of your monthly plan price. It should be on the pricing page, but if not, you can reach out to our account services team to verify how much is included with your plan and what the overage is. We don't cut you off. Music on hold. You can choose to have users have their own hold music if you want them to. You would just click enable, click upload a .wave.mp3 file up to 1 megabyte in size. Click browse to find it, click the up arrow icon. Once it's finished loading, click on save changes. You would do this, for instance, like if you want your sales team to have hold music talking about current promotions or specials, whereas your tech support team, you probably have something about, go to our website and look for the FAQ. You can link your account to other services beyond AWS, although that typically requires webhooks, which would be a plan-specific feature. If you can give a kind of a brief overview, if you look in the show notes under the introduction to Zapier webinar, that covers some of webhooks and also just how to work with Zapier as well. All right, do not disturb, right? Click to enable or click to disable. As an admin, you might have to do this because someone had to leave because of a family emergency. Hot desking is a VoIP phone feature. This is for like a shared office environment or hybrid scheduling, right, where basically people don't have a set desk in the office every day. So you would click to enable, give them a hot desk ID. I usually just say, especially if you're making use of 4-digit extensions, just make their hot desk ID their extension number. You can choose to offer a PIN number or make them use a PIN number if you want to. But basically what happens is, like I come into the office on Tuesday, I sit down at desk number 2. I pick up the phone, the VoIP phone at desk number 2. I hit *11. That turns on hot desking. The system asks me for my hot desk ID. I enter that. It then tells me calls will come to me at this device, right? So the rest of my workday, anyone who enters my extension number, for example, it's going to ring at the phone I'm sitting at. End of my workday, I hit *12 to turn off hot desking. Next time I come into the office, someone's already sitting at desk number 2. That's fine. I just move over to desk number 5. Same thing. All right, pick up the phone, *11, enter hot desk ID, and now I'm getting calls where I'm sitting at. All right, next up is groups. So groups are departments, sometimes referred to as hung groups or ring groups. Up here at the top, you click on add group. You need to give it a name and then an extension number. Then click and drag your staff members that you want in the group and then click on create group. Once a group is created, you can click on the name. So you can always change the name at any time. Then the group call attempts. This is how many times the system will offer an inbound call to the members of the group. Little arrows to the far right of the box so you can increase or decrease that as you need to. Here's the option to delete the group if you no longer need it. Otherwise, click on Save Changes. Then we have the members box. This shows who you've assigned to the group and how you're offering calls to the members. In this case, I'm doing what's called blast ringing or ring all. And so basically, whoever picks up the call first gets the call. In an office environment, that should be fine, right? Because people could hear when someone else picks up. In a remote working situation, that might cause confusion. Now, if you use something like Slack or Teams, you can verify, hey, did someone get this call? Or system admin can get into the call logs to see if who picked it up or if there's an actual problem, right? But what can happen is, say Dante and Jeanette can pick up a call at the same time, and let's say the system has to choose who it's going to. Say offers, so Jeanette gets the call, and Dante's sitting there going, hello, hello, anyone there? He may think there's something wrong with either his phone or the system, if especially in a remote working situation. Now, this is sort of works kind of like the follow me feature. Up here we have timestamps. Defaults to 2 minutes, right? 120 seconds. You can change that down if you want to, or up. You can also click distribute. Now, when you click distribute in a group, calls will always be offered in this order. So, right, so call comes in, Dante answers, right, because he's the first person. While he's still on that first call, if a second call calls in, the system still offers that second call to Dante. Right? So he may hear a call waiting to beep if that's enabled on his phone. So then after 20 seconds, then it goes to David. Right? So now Dante and David are on calls. Third call comes in. That third caller is waiting 40 seconds before it's offered to Jeanette. Now, because these are sliders, as an admin, you can adjust it so that way these later callers aren't waiting on hold quite as long, if necessary. If I had more staff members here, I could click on add people to add more people as well. And then likewise, I could just go back to that whole ring all, so that way my staff members aren't waiting, or my callers aren't waiting. Now, I'm sure you just noticed that I can move these around, so I can change the order. Right, so that way Jeanette's first and then David's last. So like if David's have a special project that I need, him to work on and get done, I would do something like this. And then you click remove and then save changes for anyone who's no longer part of the group. Groups have extension numbers. You can always add multiple if you need to. Right, just click add extension, enter the extension number, and then save changes. Groups can have phone numbers. Just like users, these do not have hours of operation. Well, but beyond that, same process. Either add from spare, buy a new. You also have the gear icon here so you can update that information. And then group features. First up is ring back. So call comes in the group, offered to your members. That ringing sound is piped back to the inbound caller. Ring back. If you don't want that to happen, instead you want some sort of media file to play, you can do so. You would first click to enable this feature and then upload a .wav or MP3 file. The one thing to know is that the system will not loop the file for you. So you want to make sure that the total playtime of your file matches or exceeds the ring time that you've set up in the group. Right? Default is 120 seconds in the group, so you want to make sure by default that your ringback file is at least 120 seconds. Next action appears where you enable it. This is for if no one's able to answer the call, what do you want the system to do with that inbound caller? And here you have your options, right? So basically anything you've added to the account, you can send it to a different group. You can send it to a specific person. You can even send it to a specific phone if you want it to. But most people choose sending it to a voicemail box so that person can leave a message. Allow call forward. When you turn on, that means your users can make use of call forwarding for group calls. And then caller ID prepend. This is for your VoIP phone users. You can add either text or numbers that show up in front of the caller ID on your staff members' phones. So again, this is for your VoIP phone users. I usually recommend using one or the other. I prefer text over letters or numbers, just because the numbers sometimes bleed into the phone number. So then I'm like, wait, what is the callback number of this person? Whereas a word is very easy to tell the difference. But any changes, click on Save Changes. All right, so now we've got users with devices, we've got groups. So let's go up to main number. Up here at the top, you got your main company numbers. You can unassign any of these numbers if you no longer want to use them as a main number. And then down here, you can either assign from spare or by new numbers if you want more main numbers. You do have a little gear icon here, so you can update the caller ID, E911, or prepend. Then we have office hour strategy. You have open 24-hour open office, right? You're open 24/7, or custom office hours. If you choose custom office hours, for each day of the week that you're open, put a check mark in front of that day. Then in the boxes to the right, enter your open hours in 24-hour or military time. Down here at the very bottom, you have the option here to say you're closed for lunch at the same time every day. Right? Just put a check mark here, and then enter your lunch hours again in that 24-hour or military time, and then click on Save Changes. Office holidays, if you're closed for holidays, put a check mark here. And then over here on the right, you have a pull down here where it says Add Holiday. You have single day, date range, or advanced. Each one creates a new row. So single day, like I have here for Christmas Day, right? I give it a name and choose a month and a date, save changes. Date range is like I have here for holiday, right? So that's the name, start date, end date, save changes. Advanced is like is for Memorial Day here. I gave it a name. I choose the month. This second pull down, you have first through fifth as well as last, and then the day of the week. All right, save changes. If you need to remove a holiday, you would just click on the little trash icon here at the far right and then save changes. Then we have incoming call handling. So here I have 3 tabs, right? Open hours, after hours, and holidays. During my open hours, my main numbers, I have all my calls going here to this first option to the virtual receptionist, which is a link. And here, my main menu, right? So these are what people press on their phone to navigate through my phone system. I click on Add Route to give me a new menu option. This first pull down, you have the default action, and then 0 through 9 and the star key. The second pull down are things on your system, right? Users, groups, etc., which is why we went through everything else first. The greetings, this is where you say thank you for calling, right? You typically give your organization name. You would also give instructions, right? Pressing 1 for sales, 2 for support, that sort of thing. First up, text to speech. Here in this box, you would type in a greeting that you want the system to read back, right? So it's a computerized or robotic voice. In this box, you can enter up to 250 characters, not words. Does not count spaces as part of that 250. This is good when if you're just getting started out and you're not exactly sure how you want things to go. The downside is that the system names the file for you. So since we're in our open hours, it's going to call main open hours menu TTS, right? TTS for text to speech. So if I type in, let's see here. Let's say I hit update before I finished typing, right? So I call in, oh, I made a mistake. If I come back in and then type in some more, right? So this is my second was it back at the beginning? All right, so now I would, once I click update and save changes, I would have two files called main open hours menu TTS. So my recommendation, when you make use of a text-to-speech greeting, once you create one, um, when you get back to the dashboard page on the left-hand side, there's a greetings tab, which we'll be getting to shortly. You want to go there, find that main open hours menu TTS file, and click on the little wrench icon, change the name. At least something like, main greeting one, just so you know what it is. Just because that way from any pull down menu, you'll be able to see, know which file it is just by looking at it. You can upload your own file, right? .wave.mp3, just click on choose file, find the file on your computer, click update, save, and save changes. Choose from an existing recording. This pull down will show all the media files on your account. So main greetings, voicemail greetings, bring back files. You can record it over the phone. When it says pick up a phone, register to the account, that means pick up a VoIP phone. Now, if you don't want to do that, or you can't, right? You're like, oh, I want to use my cell phone, or I have that phone. I have a friend who's got a great radio voice. You can do that, but just under here, come down under settings, and then where it says allow outside recording, click this on. Right. The reason it defaults to using a VoIP phone is a security feature, right? Because it says, oh, this phone is registered to this account, so we know it's part of this account. In either situation, you would call your main number. And when you hear that main greeting play, you would enter the PIN number. The PIN number is specific to this time of day, right? So this PIN number only works during my open hours, right? Like my system is open Monday to Friday. So if I called in on Saturday, this PIN number would not work on Saturday. I would have to use my after hours PIN. But after that, you just record the file and you would have the option to save it. Now, if you just signed up with us, there's a default greeting in place, right? So if you called in and did this process, you would replace that default greeting with whatever you recorded over the phone. And I bring that up just because for when holidays come up, sometimes people get in a rush and they overwrite their normal main greeting that they use for most of the year. And there's not an automatic backup for that. So be aware. Professional recording services, when you click order, this will open a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings, which is a separate company. They have like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They bill you directly, typically via credit card. They email you the completed file, so then you can come back up here to upload your own file. Right, so now we're on to settings. Number of retries on missed dial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. So I have one retry, which means my inbound caller has two total attempts to navigate through my system, right? Because they have one built in and then one retry. Dialing timeout. This is how much time the system listens for an additional button press, right? So my customer calls in, they press 7. The system waits for a count of 5 and says, oh, you're done. Double checks to see if there is a menu option 7 or an extension number 7. If not, then it replays the greeting, right, to give that customer a retry. All right. Allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on, and this just means if the inbound caller enters a valid extension number, the system will transfer that call to that extension. If I turn this off, that means my inbound caller can only press these menu options. Anything else is treated as an invalid option. And then here, we have the suppress the playing of invalid option, right? So my inbound caller made 2 unsuccessful attempts, right? They kept pressing 7. After that second attempt, the system would say, we did not recognize your entry. Now, Since I have a default action, it would then transfer the call to my default action. If I don't have a default action, then it would say, we did not recognize your entry and goodbye and end the call. And some people want the default action, and so that's why they suppress the playing of that message, because it just transfers the caller, and the caller is none the wiser. Some people don't want the default action because of robodialers basically using up minutes on the account. Any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or your settings, you need to click Save down here at the bottom right. It takes you back to incoming call handling, and then you need to click Save Changes here. After hours, I have the calls using the second option. This is my live operator answer option. So here I'm offering calls to Jeanette first. If she's unable to pick up, then the calls come here to my virtual receptionist. Now this is a pull down, so I can select, say, my support group. Right? So that way, if the members of my support group aren't able to pick up, right, which hopefully there'd be more people available, but if they can't, then it would go to my virtual receptionist. This is my after hours virtual receptionist, so I have different menu options, likely a different greeting. Right? But again, save changes. And then holidays, I'm using this third option here. This first pull down, you can have it go to anything on your system, right? User, group, device, even a media file. If, say, you're offering it to user and they don't pick up, then you can choose on the second pull down which voicemail box the people leave a message in. Now, this first pull down, I'm using the special option here at the end, which is just say skip the voicemail, right? Don't offer to anyone, just send the caller straight to voicemail. Main conference room, you can add additional conference room numbers if you wish. Once you do have a conference room number, you can do a custom text-to-speech greeting. You would just click on and then type in the greeting you want to use. Even if you leave it disabled, when you call your conference room number, the system says welcome to the conference and prompts you to enter your conference room number and the PIN number. Main fax box number, you have the one main fax box number. Once you do, you can edit the fax box. Inbound notification email, right? You enter an email address, and this address gets an email every time a fax comes through. In the body of the email, there's the date, the time, the fax box number, and a PDF attachment. One thing to be aware of is someone dials your fax box number, say from their cell phone, right? And then they hang up. This email address still gets an email saying there was a failed fax attempt. Now, you may, in the body of that email under the caller ID, you may see wireless number. So that will let you know, oh, this was a wrong number dial, right? So I don't have to worry about it. Beyond that, you would want to reach out to the people who are trying to fax to you saying, hey, it didn't come through. Email permissions, in the box to the right, you can enter in your company's email domain or even just a single email address. And this is who you're allowing to send a fax out on the account. So by putting in the company domain here, anyone at VirtualPBX can send a fax out on this account, even if they're not a user on this account. Now, to do so, in the to field of their email, they put the plus sign, number one, the area code and phone number, and then they need the account realm. Then they need to attach a PDF or a TIFF file, and they click send, right? So the system looks at the to field of the email, the from field, and the attachment. It's not going to transmit anything you put in the subject line or anything you put in the body of the email. One email address per email, one attachment per email. So you want to make sure you don't have any signature files associated with your email automatically, or remove them before you click send, because that will cause an error. All right, auto attendance, an add-on feature or a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create secondary attendance. So you would use this if you have multiple businesses on the same account. So you want them to have their own main greetings. Or you want to make use of something or a feature called like sub-menuing, right? One for English, two for Spanish. You would then create an English and Spanish auto attendant to have a greeting in the appropriate language, and then the menu options go to people who speak those languages. Up here at the top, you click on Add Attendant, give it a name, give it an extension number, and then click on Create Attendant. The extension number is not something your customers would likely ever know, but your staff would use to transfer calls to it. Once attendant is created, you can click on the name. It defaults to being unavailable in main menu, meaning it's a standalone auto attendant or a standalone business, right, or separate business. Now, you can click on this toggle and make it available in main menu, and that means it's a sub-menu option. So it would be an option under your virtual receptionist. It would even be a next action option off of a group. Auto attendants can have their own phone number, right? So you can buy a new or add from spare. That little gear icon here as well. Extension number box, you can add extensions. So an auto attendant can have multiple extension numbers if you want them to. And then you have the little wrench icon here under settings. And you see I have open hours, after hours, and holidays. This would match what we had set up under the main number, right? So your secondary businesses have to have the same hours of operation as your primary. These all go to the virtual receptionist, so you would need to set up menu options and a greeting, as well as these other settings, and then you would click on Save and save changes. Next up, we have the Device tab. This shows all your devices on the account. If it's red, it means it's unregistered, so we can't really send a call to it. Right? Black as well means under the Enable column, we've turned it off, right, because we're currently not using it. Green, we can send calls to it, whether that means it's a cell phone or landline or a VoIP phone that's registered. So like a soft phone or web phone would show up red here because the people haven't logged into it. It's usually the first thing that comes up. Beyond that, for any VoIP phone, it could be they're having some sort of network problem, right? Or sometimes it's the ISP is having a problem, but that's not very common, right? And it's usually not like some person might have like, oh, my ISP is having a local problem, but like the next state over, that same ISP is fine. Now you can add devices directly here. The main thing I want to point out is the soft phone, right? You still get that warning message, get the big old box, but there's no option to say use VirtualPBX application because the VirtualPBX soft phone is associated with an email address, which is only available on a user. But beyond that, everything else is the same. You're not going to be able to assign a device here, so you would still have to go to the user to assign it to a specific user. The Greetings tab shows all your media files on the account, right? Voicemail files, or voicemail greetings, main greetings, ringback files. You can add a file by clicking Add up here at the top. Give it a name, click on Browse to find the file, and then click on Create Greeting to upload it here. You're not assigning it here, but it's available from any of the pull downs. Name, right, is the name of the file. Source, TTS is text-to-speech. Upload means you uploaded the file. Recording means it was recorded over the phone. You have this play icon here in this third column. This allows you to listen to the greeting directly in your browser, right, so you can make sure it's still relevant or needed. Download, you can click and download the file. This would be in case the file isn't playing back in your browser for whatever reason. I also recommend this recommend users to do this for their main greeting, so they have a local backup copy of their default main greeting that they use. Right, so that way, if anything ever happens to it, they can just upload it and they're good to go. Edit, little wrench icon here on the far right. When you click on it, this is where you can rename the file so it's something you can easily recognize, or you can delete it if you know you no longer need it. Numbers tab starts you off with numbers in use, basically shows where your numbers are assigned. You got the little gear icon here, so you can update the E911 caller ID or prepend. Spare numbers you're not using. This is where you can delete numbers from your account. Right? So first you have to unassign it, saying, hey, I'm not using it anymore. And then you would click on the box in front of the number. All right, then you have this option here to delete, back up here towards the top. You would click on that. It says, are you sure? Delete the numbers, continue, and now I have less phone numbers on my account. By numbers, you have local toll free. This would just add more spare numbers to your account. Port, this starts the port process. Click on new port requests. You give it a name. Choose local or toll free. If you need to port both, you basically want to do two separate port requests. It's a little bit cleaner. Then you would click next. Now the system wants you to upload a PDF of your most recent bill, right? Dated within the last 30 days. Then there's a form to fill out where we're asking for like the company name, the address, etc. That should match what the current carrier has on file, right? So if you're moving a number, say from Comcast to VirtualPBX, right? You put in the information Comcast has on file for your company. It does ask for the BTN, which is a billing telephone number. If you're only porting the one phone number, use the number you're porting as a BTN, that's fine. If you're porting multiple phone numbers, you may need to reach out to your current carrier to find out what the BTN really is. There's also provisions to add a PIN number. Some carriers require a PIN number in order to port out. This is mostly a mobile carrier thing, but other carriers do make use of it. So it's something to be aware of, right? Now, it usually comes up with, as I said, the mobile carriers, some VoIP phone carriers, and Magic Jack all require PIN numbers that I've encountered. So you want to get that instant account PIN number or transfer PIN number is usually what it's referred to. It's not the PIN number you use to log into your account on their portal or whatever. Now, if everything's correct, a toll-free number takes about 3 to 5 business days for it to complete. Local numbers have a wider variance. I've seen some complete the next business days, others take 2 to 3 weeks. If we get a rejection, we double check to make sure there wasn't a typo or something that we can correct on our side first. If there isn't, then we let you know saying, hey, we get a rejection for this reason. At that point, you need to contact the current carrier to find out what the correct information is in order to port out. All right, voicemail box shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. The ones that have an entry under the user are the voicemail boxes that you created with the user. But up here at the top of the page, you can click on Add Voicemail Box to create a new voicemail box. Right? This is what you would use for like your groups, for instance, or call center queues. You would give it a name, give it a voicemail box number, give it a PIN number, and then click on Create Voicemail Box. Once a voicemail box is created, you can click on the little edit or wrench icon here. Right? The voicemail box number is not the same as an extension number. Right? So if someone calls into my main number, right, they get to the virtual receptionist, they enter 3333 and hoping to get to this voicemail box number. It's not going to route. They're going to get invalid entry. Now, if I have an extension 3333, that would still go through. The voicemail box number and PIN number here, this is what you would use to access the voicemail over the phone. Right? So you can check messages or you can record the greeting over the phone, etc. Advanced, and then we're going to greeting media. This is where you can upload or add the media files to the voicemail box. Right? The media file, that's your default or your normal greeting. Right? You can upload a .wav or .mp3 file to play. The temporary file, that's for the out of office or vacation message. If you have both a temporary file and a media file selected, only the temporary file plays. The media file will not play again until you set temporary back to none. Recipients, your user voicemail boxes have a built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login. But for any voicemail box, you can come here to the Recipients tab and click on Add Recipient, enter in a new email address. Right? keep clicking add until you're done. And then when you're done, click on save changes. So that means each one of these email addresses gets an email every time this voicemail box gets a message. And then we have options. So once you have a media file in place and recipients, you can click on already set up. And that means that like changing it over the phone, no longer allowed, right? It's like, hey, it's done. It's just leave it alone. Beyond that, down here, you have the option to make sure that attach messages to email is enabled. Now, this is my support voicemail box for my support group. So this is a voicemail box I don't ever want to get full. So in this instance, I have opted to delete the messages after notification. So what that means, right? Someone leave a voicemail. The system sends out that email notification to the email addresses involved. Once those emails get sent out, the system then comes back to the voicemail box and deletes that voicemail message. Thus, this voicemail box doesn't ever get full. Virtual text forward. So this is an add-on feature. This allows me to have phone numbers to be able to receive a text, and then they send that message on. It's not for two-way texting communication, right? That's what the virtual text feature is for. But up here at the top, you would click on add number, and you have to select one of your spare numbers. Then in the email, you would enter either an email address, or if you have webhooks on the account, add the webhook. Right, and then you'll click on create virtual text forward. So each of these phone numbers, if they receive a text, they're sending messages on to these relevant email addresses. Right, so they get an email, it has the date, the time, phone numbers involved, and the text message, and then they can act upon it. Virtual extensions is a plan-specific feature, so you'd have to talk to services team about getting this added. This gives you a little bit more versatility in terms of adding extensions without adding users. Up here at the top, you would click on add extension. You just need to give it a name and an extension number. You click on create extension. Now, when you click on the devices, you can only ever have one device associated with a virtual extension. Right? You have SIP phone, cell phone, soft phone, etc. Because the virtual extension doesn't have an email address associated with it, you cannot use the VirtualPBX soft phone. Right? So you can use a third-party soft phone, but not ours. Additionally, this virtual extension, it can be accessed from the main menu, right? So calls come into your virtual receptionist, they can enter the extension number, it will reach this user, or this extension, excuse me. Bad terminology there. It can also be a menu option. Right? You can say, hey, option 1 will go to this virtual extension. But there's no user features associated with this virtual extension, right? So there's no voicemail box associated with the user, or this, sorry, there's no voicemail box associated with the virtual extension, which means in order to leave a message for this virtual extension, there would have to be a voicemail box associated with the device the virtual extension is using. Virtual extensions also cannot be members of a group, right? Because that requires a user, nor can they be members of the call center because those also require users. Call logs shows call activity on the account. You have today, this week, this month, and you can go custom where you can change the date range. And then click filter. The system will let you go back up to 12 months. If you need to go further back, you would need to contact our support team. They would have to create an escalation for you. Our engineers can go back up to 18 months, but after that, the data is not available. Each one of these tabs, you can click on the download link and it downloads a CSV file. So if you're good with spreadsheets, you'll be able to get some more data out of this and see what's going on. The green arrow to the right on a call, right? That's a call coming into the system. And you see here, there's 2 legs. The first leg is a call coming into the system. The second leg is from the system out to the device, and I can see what device was used. Right, so this looks like it was a soft phone of some sort. The yellow arrow to the left is a call going out from the system, right? So an outbound call. And then the little fire extinguisher icon next to a call, basically this creates an email for you, pre-addressed to support@virtualpbx.com. It's going to have the technical details of the call. Please type some context about why you're sending the call in, because sometimes just from the technical details, we're not going to know exactly why you're sending in the call in question. Specifically, like audio, like call quality issues, doesn't really show up in the call logs as specifically as that. All right, feature codes. I've talked about a couple of these. These are ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phone. Obviously, it's a page here. If you look on the support pages, you can do a search for the feature codes page or the phone commands cheat sheet. The cheat sheet has the feature codes, but it also has the context help included as well. All right, so that's the dashboard. Next up, we have blacklists. Blacklist is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you're blocking from reaching your users. So you would click Edit Blacklists here towards the top right. Click Add to create a new list, or you can click on an existing list if you've already created some. For a new list, you need to give it a name. And then for any list, you need to decide, are you blocking anonymous calls or not? Right? By default, this is off, meaning they're coming through. Right? Anonymous call just means we're not getting valid inbound caller ID. But beyond that, down here, click on Add Number, put +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Keep clicking Add until you're done. Once you are done, you will click Save. Then go towards the top and click on Back to Settings. On the blacklist page, make sure your lists are over here on the right under Selected. You might have to click and drag, especially if you just created a new list. Even if your list is already on the right-hand side, you want to click on Update here at the bottom right. And then that's it. Call recording. So this account is set up with AWS. So I'm basically getting the mirrored version of the AWS interface. So I can see my calls here. I can choose all the recordings inbound or outbound. I can also change the date range. If you're not using AWS, if you click on this link, it takes you to a new tab, recordings.virtualpbx.com. It has a login, which just uses your Dash login information, but then you can view recordings there. Let's go. Okay, monitor, plan-specific feature. And I think it's also an add-on. This allows me to see the status of my other staff members, regardless of what device they're using. In fact, I can even sort by devices if I want to. Right? But there's also all who's available and who's busy. Over here, active inbound calls. Each active inbound call would have its own little blue box and showing who among my staff they're speaking to. Park calls, if the parking feature code has been used, that person's will show up here with their caller ID and their parking spot number. Reports, this opens up a new tab, takes you to reports.virtualpbx.com, which has its own login information. If you look down in the show notes, there is the advanced reporting demo. I suggest taking a look at that. But the reports allows you to create your own reports for the most part. It's a more advanced version of the call logs. So if you're interested in that, take a look at the show notes or the show notes there, and then you can either add it, enable it via the add-on, or again, if you're adding multiple add-ons, you probably want to talk to services first. Voicemails tab. This takes you to lets you get to any voicemail box on the account as an admin, where you can see their messages, right? You can see if they're new, the date, the time, phone numbers involved. You can download the file. You can play back the file over here on the far right. On the left, there's a little box here where you can put a check mark. You can move a voicemail from one voicemail box to another. And then you can also change its status, right? So if a voicemail box is full, you can get rid of messages. Integration AWS. This is where you would go about linking your Dash account to AWS. We would need the access key ID, the secret access key, and the bucket from AWS. And then we can start storing the information there. The call center. This opens up a new tab, gets you to callcenter.virtualpbx.com. Uses your Dash login to log in. If you look in the show notes, you want to look at the ACD Queues Pro demo to see what the queues are about. Queues are an advanced version of groups. Right? So users can log in and out of a queue, but they can't log in and out of a group. Right? They can also mark themselves away in the queue, which they cannot do in a group. There's different routing options. You have things like round robin, which will equalize out over time, or like most idle, who's been waiting the longest, gets the next call. Managers in a queue can eavesdrop in on a call. Right? They can whisper to their agent to help them, or even barge in if things are getting out of control. And that's something we'd have to speak to our services team to add to your account. Dynamic caller ID, this is an add-on or part of a plan. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID of your VoIP phones. You would click on create rule. I'm just going to click on the existing ones here. So this one, I named Vegas. I chose a 702 number on my account. And this is real simple, right? Whenever my staff members dial a 702 area code phone number, the system will change their outbound caller ID to the 702 number I selected. And then save changes. The other one here is I created a feature code. So now my staff members have to dial *951 first, and the area code and phone number they're reaching out to. When they do so, their outbound caller ID changes to this 916 number I selected. Faxes is your fax manager. You can get to any fax box on the account. First up, your inbound faxes. You can see the date, the time, phone numbers involved. You can see how many pages. You can download the file. Little box here, so you can choose to get rid of it. Outbound faxes. Again, you get to any fax box on the account. So here you see success and failures. If you see a failure, you can mouse over to get some additional details. When you see a failure here, that means we had a problem with the other phone number. Right? So in this case, we're saying, hey, this was a legit phone number, but we didn't hear fax tones. So we ended the call, right? So we were given the wrong number, or maybe we typed in the wrong number. The email to fax logs, if you see something here, that means the system had a problem processing the request. We never tried the other phone number. On the far right, click on the little eyeball icon here, and you'll get some more details. In this case, right, the system had a problem processing the PDF. So there's some variability within the PDF format. So sometimes simply resaving the file and retrying will let it go through. Other times you can have to like download as PDF or export as PDF can also work. Other things we see sometimes someone use like their personal email address instead of the work email address, so it says they don't exist, etc. Number manager just takes you back to your spare number page. I'm going to skip down here. SMS registration. So this is what you have to go through in order to make use of the virtual text feature. If you're interested in this, you actually want to talk to our account services team first. Right? So you can email them at accountservices@virtualpbx.com. Or if you dial into our toll-free number, just hit option 4. So they'll go over this with you. There is a one-time registration fee, but I don't recall what it is. Once you go start it, registration over here on the second tab, right? Click on register. And then here you can see the registration status. Webhooks, plan-specific feature. This allows you to link your Dash account to other software. You would click on a new webhook. This is some level of programming. As I mentioned before, when someone asks the question, you can use this to link your Dash account to other software. So look at the introduction to Zapier webinar. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx VirtualPBX.com to see sample code of what we've done to link Dash to other software. And you'd probably want to talk to our sales team if you're interested in this. And then lastly, we have the user portal, right? Every user has access to their very own user portal, right? Starts off on voicemail so that you can listen to them, download them. A user can change their status. Call history, they can see their call history. They can change the date range. Let's go back here. All right, so they can see that. Now this is not going to be nearly as detailed as the call logs, so just be aware of that. Faxes only works for users that have their own fax box, but they can see their fax history. Contact list is everything on your Dash account. So this helps people like transfer calls to other users, groups, attendants, or even see the feature codes. Conference tab. Over here on the right is where your users would update their moderator and participant PIN numbers. These two PIN numbers should be different, right, just for security purposes. You have the option here to have people join muted or deafened, as well as play entry and exit tones. When you're in a conference, you can come to this page. Little plus icon, you can invite other Dash users to your conference. You can lock the conference so no one else joins, mute everybody, unmute everybody, and the conference call. Also, while in a conference, each moderator and participant has their own little box. This allows you to mute a specific person or even kick out a specific person if you need to. And then the settings and devices tab. Right here is where your staff members can enable call forwarding on their own. Just put a check mark here. +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses, and click save. Now I am call forwarding. When I'm done, I uncheck the box and click save. Then I can also see the status of my current devices. And with that, that is everything. And I don't see any other questions. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream today. I thank you for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day.